My husband's family was dead set on having the whole wedding done in their language, one I didn't speak, so I wouldn't understand a single word. When I asked about it, his sister just laughed and said, "You don't need to know." And my husband? He barely muttered, "It's just tradition." My husband's family was dead set on having the whole wedding done in their language, one I didn't speak, so I wouldn't understand a single word. When I asked about it, his sister just laughed and said, "You don't need to know." And my husband? He barely muttered, "It's just tradition." So I let them handle the planning, figured I'd pick my battles. But on the day of the wedding, they were hit with a bombshell that left them completely stunned. I'm a 32-year-old American woman, born and raised in Oregon. About 4 years back, I packed up and moved to Florence, Italy, to teach English. That's where I met Marco. He's 34 now, and at the time, he seemed like a real catch. Polite, funny, thoughtful, or so I thought. His English was solid, so we clicked pretty quickly. After about a year and a half of dating, he popped the question, and I said yes without hesitation. At first, I thought I was marrying into one of those big, loving Italian families you always hear about. I wasn't expecting a warm embrace from the start, but I figured they'd at least try to make me feel included. Turns out, I was way off. Marco's family is from a small town up in the Veneto region, a couple of hours north of Venice. They speak this old Venetian dialect that's miles apart from standard Italian. Now, I speak decent Italian, enough to get around, but that dialect? It might as well have been ancient Greek to me. When we started making plans for the wedding, I suggested doing the ceremony in both English and Italian. My parents and a few close friends were flying in from the States, and I wanted them to be part of it. That's when things started to feel off. Marco's sister, Julia, cut me off mid-sentence. She laughed and said, "Oh no, no. It has to be in our dialect. That's just how it's done." I asked if we could at least translate parts of it or include some English for my family's sake. She looked me right in the eye and said, "You don't need to know. You'll get the gist." I turned to Marco, waiting for him to speak up, but all he said was, "It's tradition. You'll catch the important parts." I felt brushed off, like my opinion didn't matter. But Marco seemed so confident that this was all normal, and I didn't want to make a fuss. I told myself it was just one day. Just a wedding. Nothing to get worked up over. I regret thinking that. I really do. Once they decided on the language, I was basically cut out of everything. Every meeting, every detail, they all talked in the dialect. I'd sit there like a clueless idiot while everyone else chatted away. Whenever I tried to ask questions, they'd smile and say, "Don't worry, we've got it all handled." Julia even joked once, "Just show up in your dress, you'll be surprised." And everyone laughed. Even the invitations didn't have my name on them. Instead, they read Marco e la Straniera, which literally means Marco and the foreigner. My family thought it was a joke. I didn't know what to tell them. When I brought it up to Marco, he shrugged it off, said it was just a nickname his mom liked, that it wasn't meant to be hurtful. But it was. It was mean. Every single thing reminded me that I wasn't really part of their family. I was being tolerated, not welcomed. About a month before the wedding, Marco started acting different. He stopped talking about the honeymoon, wasn't affectionate anymore. He seemed stressed out, cold, short-tempered. I figured it was just wedding jitters, tried not to read into it. But deep down, I had a bad feeling I couldn't shake. Then Emily, my best friend, came to visit. She's fluent in Italian, not the dialect, but she can pick up on a lot. I took her with me to one of the final planning meetings. We sat quietly in the back while they went over the details. No one seemed to notice her, probably assumed she didn't understand a word. Later that night, she told me, "They're up to something. And it's not just about the wedding." She said she heard Julia talking about how they were going to put you in your place, how they'd show you what their family is really about. Emily said it didn't sound like a joyful celebration, it sounded like control. Like punishment. My stomach dropped. I felt sick. So Emily and I started digging. Someone had left a copy of the wedding program on a chair, and we took it. It was all in Venetian, but I hired a translator to figure it out. Yes, I actually had to pay someone to understand my own wedding plans. And what we found wasn't a wedding. It was a setup. The priest's vows had lines about how the bride came from a different place and needed to adapt, how she was expected to follow her husband's lead and adopt the family's ways. There was even a section set aside just for Julia. A speech. In it, she planned to say things like, "We never thought Marco would marry someone from outside, but we're generous. We welcomed someone, foreign." That word kept popping up, foreign, over and over again. Even the music playlist was a dig at me. There were joke songs mocking Americans. One of them made fun of how Americans put ketchup on pasta. It was all designed to make me look like a joke, like I didn't belong. That night, I cried. But after that? I got mad. Because here's the thing, they didn't know what I had up my sleeve. While they were busy planning how to humiliate me, what they didn't realize was, I still had control of the important stuff. The venue? I paid for it. It was booked in my name. The DJ deposit? Mine. The translator for my side of the family? Also me. Originally, she was just supposed to whisper the ceremony to my parents and friends so they wouldn't feel left out. But I asked her to do more, translate everything, especially for me. She agreed without hesitation. Emily, being the genius she is, helped me record the speeches at one of the rehearsals. She pretended to be filming cute behind-the-scenes content for Instagram, but in reality, she was capturing audio, Julia's speech, the priest's lines, all of it. We got the whole thing. Then I rented a second speaker system. I told the planner it was for emergency announcements, but I had it rigged to kick in at an exact moment during the ceremony. I gave the DJ just one instruction: hit play at exactly 4:23 p.m. On the outside, I played the role perfectly. I smiled at dress fittings, I thanked Julia for the bottle of wine she sent over, and I kept up the act. But inside? I was getting ready to burn the whole thing to the ground. I even wore the dress they insisted I wear, some heirloom from Marco's grandmother. Heavy, kind of old-fashioned, but yeah, it was beautiful. My makeup was simple. My hands were shaking. My parents were seated all the way in the back. Apparently, Marco's family told the planner that the guests of honor should be up front, and by that, they meant their side, not mine. Then, the ceremony started. The priest began to speak in their dialect, and my translator leaned in to whisper every word into my ear. It was even worse than I expected. He called me the outsider. Said I was being welcomed only by the family's generosity and mercy. He spoke about obedience, about how I needed to submit to tradition. My stomach turned. Then it was Julia's turn. She stood up, grinning like this was her big moment. She looked me dead in the eye as she started her speech, and the translator whispered, "This is our family. We are proud. We are united. And we do not change for others." The crowd clapped. I turned to Marco, searching for some kind of reaction. But he didn't even glance at me. Then the speakers crackled. And my voice came on. Not a recording. Me. Live. "Hello, everyone," I said. "I've been asked not to speak today. I've been told I don't need to understand, that I shouldn't question this family's traditions. Because I'm a foreigner." The whole room went silent. "I heard what you said, about obedience, about how lucky I am to be accepted. I've heard the jokes. I've read the program. I know exactly what this wedding was meant to be." People started shifting uncomfortably in their seats. I saw Marco lean over and whisper something to his mother. But I wasn't done. "You planned this wedding in a language I don't speak. You wrote speeches to mock me. You laughed behind my back." Then I gave the signal. And the second recording started. Julia's voice filled the room, recorded at rehearsal. "She's clueless. She'll just stand there smiling. It'll be hilarious." Gasps. Then the priest's voice, "This will teach her how things work around here." The audio cut out. The whole place was frozen. Marco's aunt dropped her wine glass. It shattered against the stone floor. His mother looked like she was about to faint, her hand clutching her pearls like she was at a funeral. Julia? She looked like she'd just bitten into a lemon. The priest tried to step forward, mumbling something, probably to calm things down, but I wasn't finished. "I didn't come here to be mocked. I didn't agree to be part of some cruel joke. I'm not some clueless outsider you get to parade around and humiliate in front of your whole town." Then I turned and looked toward my parents, sitting in the very back. "I see now why they stuck you back there. They didn't want you to see what this really was." My dad stood up. My mom had her hand over her mouth, crying. And then I said something I hadn't planned to say. I looked at Marco, who still hadn't moved or said a word. "You could have stopped this," I said. "You knew. You heard it all. You sat next to me at night while they planned it, and you stayed silent." He still didn't say a thing. And that silence? That told me everything I needed to know. I was about to walk away when another voice cut through the room. A young woman, probably mid-20s, stood up from Marco's side. She had short brown hair and eyes that didn't flinch. I remembered seeing her earlier, lingering near his family. She walked right up to the altar and calmly took the mic from my hand. "I'm sorry," she said. "But I can't stay quiet." The whole room turned toward her. "I'm Alessia," she said. "I'm Marco's friend." Then she looked right at him. Or at least, I was. Then she turned back to the crowd and said, "We've been seeing each other for 6 months." The gasps were louder this time. I just stood there, frozen. For a second, I thought I must have heard her wrong. My legs felt like they weren't even attached to me. Julia started yelling something in that dialect. The priest tried to pull Alessia away from the mic, but she wasn't going anywhere. "He told me he wasn't really in love," she said. "That he was doing this for his family. That she pointed at me, was just a safe option. I couldn't breathe. Still, Marco said nothing. His face was pale, mouth opening and closing like he wanted to speak, but there was nothing coming out. So I said it for him. You cheated. He didn't deny it. He didn't even look my way. Now the whispers in the crowd were loud, in plain Italian this time, no dialect to hide behind. Just confusion, judgment, shock. My translator came over and gently removed her earpiece. They're embarrassed, she said quietly. Most of them didn't know. Maybe some of them didn't. But Julia? Oh, she definitely did. She looked like she was about to explode, not with shame, but with rage. She stormed up to me. This was supposed to be a family event, Julia hissed at me, her face twisted with anger. You've ruined everything. I stared her straight in the eyes and said, no. You ruined it. I just pulled back the curtain and showed everyone what it really was. Then, smack. She slapped me. Hard. Another round of gasps rippled through the crowd. That's when the venue manager came barreling in from the side door, voice booming, enough. This is over. Everybody out. Now. At that moment, I could have just grabbed my family and walked out. Left them all behind in their mess. But I wasn't finished. I walked back up to the mic one last time. I didn't come to Italy to be part of some circus act, I said. I came here because I believed in love. Real love. Respect. Partnership. And instead, what did I get? Lies. Cruelty. Silence. I paused for a second, let that land. Then I added, and just so we're clear, I paid for this venue. So my family? We're staying. We're going to eat. We're going to dance. We're going to enjoy this night. I looked over at Marco, still standing there like a ghost. You're not invited. Then I turned to the DJ and gave him the nod. He hit play. And Aretha Franklin's Respect filled the air. My parents stood up and started clapping. Emily grabbed my hand. My cousins got on their feet and cheered. The rest of the guests? They just stood there. Frozen. Awkward. Slowly shuffling out the door. After they were gone, we stayed. Me, my family, Emily, and even a few of Marco's cousins who quietly came up to me and whispered, we had no idea. We're so sorry. And honestly? I believed them. We ate the food. We danced. The photographer, still under contract, snapped every photo I asked for. Not a single shot of Marco. Not one. But here's where things took another turn. The next morning, I woke up to over 40 missed calls. Marco. His mom. Julia. Even a few random numbers I didn't recognize. They all wanted to talk. Wanted to fix things. Said I'd overreacted. That I embarrassed the family. That I made it personal. No apologies. No accountability. Just blame. But I wasn't done yet. That morning felt surreal. I was still in my wedding hair and makeup, just sitting there in the hotel room, staring blankly at the wall. My parents were quietly drinking coffee in the next room, trying not to disturb me. Emily was on her phone, flipping between missed calls and news alerts. Yeah, news alerts. Turns out, someone had live-streamed the whole wedding. Probably a teenager, one of Marco's distant cousins. They thought it was hilarious when I grabbed the mic and started talking. The video went viral in our little town. A small place, sure, but tight-knit. And stuff like this? It just doesn't happen there. The caption? American bride takes down groom's entire family in 3 languages. Around noon, Emily came bursting into the room, phone shaking in her hand. You have to see this, she said, handing it to me. It was a Facebook photo. Alessia, the woman who exposed Marco's cheating, was in it. But she wasn't alone. Standing next to her was Julia. Both of them holding wine glasses, mid-laugh. The caption? Can't wait for the big surprise. And the kicker? It had been posted 2 days before the wedding. My heart sank. Alessia wasn't some brave soul who decided to tell the truth in the heat of the moment. She was in on it. A plant. She wasn't supposed to confess, not publicly. That part must have gone sideways. But her connection to Julia? That was real. The betrayal ran deeper than I'd thought. Emily dove into social media. Friend lists, old photos, tagged posts. We found pictures of Alessia at Marco's birthday. With his mom. His uncle. Going back nearly a year. This wasn't just a personal betrayal, it was orchestrated. Marco's family knew about her. Approved of her. And they thought it'd be funny to let me walk down the aisle while his actual girlfriend watched from the crowd, sipping wine with Julia. Suddenly, all those weird vows about obedience and welcoming the outsider hit differently. It wasn't just tradition. It was a setup. A warning. A punishment. Later that afternoon, I got a call from the venue owner. He sounded uneasy. Signora, he said, I was contacted by Signora Julia. She claims you broke the terms of your contract. She says you caused a disturbance. I almost laughed. She wants your deposit withheld, he added. She's threatening to sue. Of course she was. But what none of them realized was, I'd been recording. Every meeting. Every shady comment. Every time they told me, don't worry about it, or you don't need to know. Emily helped me organize all the audio files. In one recording, they joked about reclaiming family honor. In another, they laughed at how clueless the American was. I sent everything to the venue owner. 3 hours later, he called back. The refund is processed, he said. And Signora Giulia is now blacklisted from our properties. He sent it as a voice message. I wasn't going to play it, but I did. His tone wasn't angry. Just tired. Resigned. You didn't have to destroy everything, Marco said in that final voice note. It wasn't personal. You just didn't understand the culture. Right. Because apparently, all of this, the secrecy, the mockery, the betrayal, was just a charming little tradition I failed to appreciate. My family's always handled things this way, he went on. And then you embarrassed us. Maybe that's what you really wanted, to play the victim. Not a single sorry. No trace of shame. Just finger-pointing and projection. That message was the last time I ever heard his voice. But it wasn't the last time he tried to weasel his way back into my life. A few days later, Emily showed up at my door with her laptop already open. She didn't even say hello, just, you need to see this. She turned the screen toward me. It was a document, a real estate transfer form. Both of our names on it. Already filled out, just waiting on signatures. Guess who started the process? Marco. That's when it really sank in. The wedding wasn't just a cruel performance to embarrass me in front of their whole town. It was about power. And money. Marco's family owned multiple properties around town, but they also had a long history of tax issues. Turns out, marrying a foreigner was their bright idea to make some of those problems disappear. The plan? Get me legally tied to Marco, have me co-sign on a mortgage, and use our shared American-European bank account to quietly move money around. I wasn't a bride, I was a loophole. A walking tax shield. A bank passcode with lipstick. But I wasn't stupid. Weeks earlier, I'd already spoken to a lawyer to protect my assets. I never added Marco to my American accounts. I never merged our finances. And here's the kicker, the marriage wasn't legal yet. In Italy, symbolic or religious weddings don't count in the eyes of the law. The legal part, the civil ceremony, that was scheduled for 3 days after the big event. And it never happened. So legally? I was never married. Just relieved. About a week later, I got a formal letter in the mail. From Marco's uncle. He's a lawyer, of course. It accused me of defamation. Said I had publicly humiliated a respected and honorable family. The letter threatened legal action unless I issued a public apology and paid damages, for their emotional distress and financial loss. That was the moment I knew, if they wanted a public response, they were going to get one. But not the one they were hoping for. By that point, everyone in town had heard at least some version of the story. The livestream had spread like wildfire. The video got translated and subtitled in both English and Italian. People were talking, some sympathetic, others skeptical. A few said I overreacted. A handful tried to say it was just a cultural misunderstanding. But those voices got a lot quieter once I published my own statement. It wasn't a rant. It wasn't bitter. I didn't yell. I just laid out the truth. I wrote a post and shared it everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, even Reddit. I included the recordings, the transcript of the vows, the part about the translator, the fake ceremony, the mortgage scheme. I even posted screenshots, like the one of Alessia and Julia, holding wine glasses, laughing, with the hashtag #FamilyFirst posted 2 days before the wedding. The post blew up. Again. And that's when Julia finally cracked. 3 days later, Emily and I were out at a little cafe, finally starting to breathe again. We were eating lunch, just trying to pretend for one moment that our lives weren't completely upside down. That's when Julia appeared. No greeting. No attempt at civility. She marched straight up to our table, slammed her palm down so hard the cutlery jumped, and spat out, "You think you're some kind of hero? You're trash." The entire cafe went quiet. "You humiliated us," she seethed. "You made my family look like criminals." I didn't flinch. I looked her right in the eye and said, "I didn't make you look like anything. I just held up a mirror." The people around us started staring. One waiter stood frozen, mid-step, his tray still hovering in the air. But Julia kept going, louder now. "You ruined Marco's life. He's depressed. My parents can't even go to church without people whispering. Do you even realize what you've done?" Emily stood up. Calm. Steady. She protected herself, she said. Julia turned on me again, her voice dropping low like she thought whispering would make it more venomous. "You were never going to be one of us," she said. "Never. You walk around like you're better than us, Because you speak perfect Italian, because you wear your little American shoes. But you'll never understand this family. That's when I stood up, too. Full height. No fear. No shaking. And I said it loud enough for everyone to hear, you're right. I'll never understand how a family can lie, cheat, set up a public humiliation, and still expect loyalty in return. I'll never get how someone like you can smile while stabbing someone in the back. I took a breath. And you know what? I don't want to understand. Because that's not family. That's a cult. Julia's face twisted in rage, and for a second, it looked like she was about to slap me again. Her hand lifted, but this time, someone stopped her. Marco. He reached out and grabbed her wrist, pulling her back. Stop, he said. Just, stop. He turned and looked at me. He looked like a ghost of himself, pale, eyes sunken, like he hadn't slept in days. I didn't want this, he said, voice shaking. I didn't want it to turn out like this. It got out of control. I stayed silent. I didn't know they planned to make speeches about you. I didn't hear the recordings until after. I thought, he swallowed hard. I thought it would be fine. He turned to Julia. You told me you'd keep it light. That it'd be respectful. That Alessia was just coming as a friend. Julia scoffed. Oh, so now it's my fault? Marco turned back to me. I was weak, he said. I let it all happen. I let them push you out, and I just stood there and watched. His voice cracked. I was scared of losing my family, so I let them destroy us instead. And there it was. Not an excuse. Not exactly an apology either. Just the truth, raw and too late. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to ask why he was only saying this now, after everything. But I didn't. I just looked at him, and all I saw was someone I used to love. Someone who hadn't betrayed me with one big move, but by standing still while I sank. I don't hate you, I said. But I don't trust you. And I never will again. Marco nodded. Quiet. Then he turned and walked away. Julia followed, still fuming. But before she was out the door, she turned one last time, eyes burning, and hissed, You'll regret this. Emily didn't miss a beat. She looked her dead in the face and said, loud enough for the whole cafe to hear, No. I think you will. And she was right. Julia tried to sue me later. It went nowhere fast. I had the receipts, emails, recordings, the translator's sworn statement. It was ironclad. Her own text messages did more damage to her case than anything I could have said. The court tossed it out immediately. But the real hit wasn't legal. It was social. Their family bakery? Lost several longtime customers. The village folks didn't whisper about how noble they were anymore. Now, it was whispers of shame. Disgust. As for Alessia? She disappeared. Wiped her social media clean and moved to Milan, from what I heard. Just another piece in their game. Marco sent one final email. Just a few lines. I'm sorry. You were right about everything. I hope one day you can forgive me. I never replied. A month later, I flew back to Oregon. No dramatic goodbye. No last-minute family confrontation. Just me, a suitcase, and a clean break. For the first time in what felt like forever, I breathed. Really breathed. I felt free. People ask me sometimes if I regret moving to Italy. No. I don't. Italy didn't fail me. He did. They did. And I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret grabbing that mic. I don't regret refusing to shrink into the quiet little role they tried to shove me into. Sometimes people say, you must be so strong. But the truth is, I wasn't. I was scared out of my mind. But I still told the truth. And sometimes, that's enough.